welcome back to the No Fly Zone podcast. We are back again to give you a great new episode of a topic that interests both of us, the secrets of Skinwalker Ranch. This one's probably going to be a two-parter. We have it broken down to two segments. I'm joined by KC, my co-host, and we also have special guests with us, Yvette and Adolfo, and I'll give them a moment to introduce themselves.
Hi,
Welcome, you guys.
Yvette. Thanks. Yvette is Adolfo. We've been married for 18 years. Him and Brent are buddies. I don't know what kind exactly, but I just know they're buddies.
You know what kind.
Not your buddy guy.
Not your guy, pal. Y'all stress me out. So, guys, welcome. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
This is our second attempt starting this show because
the pregame was good.
Shenanigans, motherfuckers. Okay. This outline on my screen is 48 pages long. I've spent the last 5 days spending every waking moment that I am not critically and incapacitatingly hungover working on this. And Brett's response is nice. And he's just...
It wasn't nice. It was noise. The N-O-I-C.
So all three actually of my current partners here miserably failed the vibe check and could not pronounce anything in our first paragraph. So I'm just going to take that and we're going to roll with it and see if we can't get it right this time. You know, got my back carrying this team. All right.
Sounds like an R&B song.
Y'all know Skinwalker Ranch, right? Super popular right now. Super trendy, super in. Possibly the first time that, anything involving aliens and, orbs and shit has actually really integrated into mainstream culture in a way that even people who aren't into this kind of thing have probably seen this show. Even I, who am a skeptic and don't generally watch a lot of alien type shit, am obsessed with this show. So I wanted to do it justice, which is why I have this absolute monster of an outline in front of me. And I'm going to try to jump into it so we can get through it. We're going to talk about the history of the ranch. It's a lot. It's a lot of steak on this plate, okay? So before we get to the yummy shit, we gotta dive in. Location. Again, no one else here can pronounce these words, so I'm going to do this. Skinwalker Ranch, previously known as Sherman Ranch, is a property of approximately 512 acres located southeast of Ballard, Utah. It is located in West Uintah County, bordering the Uintah and Ouray Indian Reservation, and it was properly dubbed the Ufo Ranch due to its ostensible 50-year history of odd events said to have taken place there. What do you think of that, Brett?
I love it. I love stuff like this. The story's always fascinated me, everything I learned about it.
So we are definitely going to talk a little bit about, there's a lot of ranches in, the Southwest. So why this place? What is it about this location that now has literally everyone around the globe talking about it? It is not just a local legend like it started out, and it became so popular from one article published by the Deseret News. No idea how to pronounce that word. I've never heard it said out loud, but it's spelled like that. Not a typo. It's not the Desert News. It's the Deseret News. And that was founded in 1850 at the edge of the American frontier by pioneers committed to liberty and truth per their website. So more than a century and a half later, this newspaper is still running strong. And it's the longest running news organization in the state. So they published an article, June 30th of 1996, called Frequent Flyers. And this is really what started the frenzy right here. We're going to jump into that later and dissect it a little bit more, but keep it in mind. For now, suffice it to say that the former owner, Terry Sherman, had a lot to say about the crazy things that happened to him and his family during the only 2 years they lived on this ranch. In 2005, Kelleher and co-author George Knapp, who may be familiar names to you if you've watched the show, they published a now famous book titled Hunt for the Skinwalker, in which they described the ranch being acquired by the National Institute for Discovery Science, which is hereby the acronym NIDS, to study anecdotal sightings of UFOs, Bigfoot-like creatures, crop circles, glowing orbs, poltergeist activity, cattle mutilation, all the things reported by the former owners of this location. So the book ignited a wildfire of popular interest, including the multiple media productions, such as the first documentary, which was in 2018, entitled Hunt for the Skinwalker, based on the name of the book, and the still-running series that we're going to get into, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. It is likely how most people have now heard about this place. So the latter was definitely groundbreaking in terms of exposing the public to the events at the ranch. And again, we'll dive much deeper into that research as we go. We're going to give you a little bit of the history of the Uintah Basin, if Bret can figure out how to speak.
Oh, I can speak. I was just pronouncing it wrong. But the Native American history of the Uintah Basin, I felt that it was important to lay the groundwork for the story firmly on the foundation of its true roots. The Native American Ute and Navajo tribes and the conflict between them. It's possible this conflict may be behind many of the phenomena we'll talk about shortly. During research, we found an archived website called Reality Uncovered, and they had posted a very thorough article on this topic specifically. I'll make sure to have a link in that for you. We're going to have this all on the blog, and I'm reading things I'm not supposed to read.
Correct. You also skipped an entire page. That's cool.
Yeah, I was so lost.
I was following you.
I want to punch you so badly right now. Hey guys, stay tuned for more violence between siblings here. So we're going to back up a tiny bit and talk about the actual history of the Uintah Basin, which, yes, there's quite a bit of Native American roots here that I'm going to try to summarize, but UFO reports, specifically in the basin, they were publicized in the 1970s. With the Deseret Times, which is a newspaper we talked about, in 1978, had a really strange article, which I'll make sure to put on the blog for you guys. But a 13-year-old student sees something that he describes as UFO. And it's interesting because this article appears with the centerpiece being a drawing of a UFO by the 13-year-old kid. So it's a really creepy kind of archived article with just this kid's drawing of this crude UFO surrounded by many tales of people who were stepping up now to say, yeah, I also saw this. They described it as a silver dome-shaped object with like a bright green neon light ring around it. And again, according to the book, which covered a shit ton of these sightings, especially early on, odd objects have been spotted overhead in the Uintah Basin for hundreds of years. And European explorers arrived in 1776, Franciscan missionary Silvestre Velez de Escalante. He wrote about strange fireballs appearing in the sky over his campfire in El Rey. Before the Europeans, of course, indigenous people occupied the Uintah Basin. Today, Skinwalker Ranch abuts two separate Indian reservations. And then comes the part that Bret already started reading, so I'm just going to let him continue.
Where I jumped ahead.
Yeah, it's fine.
So, as I was saying earlier, to lay the groundwork for this story, from that foundation of its true roots, the Native American Ute and Navajo tribes and the conflict between them. It's possible this conflict may be behind many of the phenomena we'll talk about shortly. During the research, we found an archived website called Reality Uncovered, and they had posted a very thorough article on this topic specifically. We'll make sure to put a link of that for you. If you want a really excellent primer to help you understand the context of the culture surrounding the Navajo Nation for New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, which is a hotbed of North American paranormal activity reports, I strongly recommend that you read through this. The article supplies us with the following information. Anyone familiar with the infiltration of this area of the country by white settlers will recall the horrors, the slaughter, and the unimaginable actions by both the United States military and the natives of the area. The tribal history of Utah in particular, including the Ute tribe, whose ancestors occupied the area for over 1,000 years, includes a great deal of tragedy and horror. It is important to make note of the fact that the Utes allied with the United States Army in attacks against the Navajo people. The mid-1800s saw some of the worst atrocities by the United States Army against the Navajo people of this region. In 1863, part of the Canyon Chelly campaign included Kit Carson and General James Charlton. attempting to starve the Navajo by placing a bounty on the Navajo livestock.
I'll pick up, Brett. Well done, sir. He can read, guys, just so you know. Sorry he's not single. So this is possibly a very large part locally. So obviously there's people who come from like the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, the show, and they're relying on science and observable data collection and, repeatable, I guess, experiments or phenomena to drive their conclusions, which is probably why I like the show so much, because it's not someone sitting there trying to convince me aliens are real. It's, let me show you a science experiment and see what it says. Love that. So locally, however, this is a very bloody conflict driven area. Obviously, we have a huge conflict early on between white settlers, and then we have the Ute and Navajo tribes. And I'm going to summarize a lot of this, but I will put the full history that I pieced together up on the blog. Essentially, the Navajo and the Utes, as the white settlers were coming in, the Navajo were almost enslaved by the Ute tribe, and the Utes kind of banded together with the white settlers against the Navajo. So much of the premise of the curses around this area involving the Skinwalkers are these kind of folklore that the Navajo actually cursed the Ute tribe by, cursing the land or bringing up these Skinwalkers, which are considered evil witches essentially, to haunt the Ute tribe. So there's a lot of superstition there. There's a lot of oral history, which is how most Native American tribes do pass down their history. And it can be difficult for people who are outside of the Native American culture to learn about these things, because it's considered disrespectful to share that information with white settlers, essentially, which is totally understandable because their oral history is sacred to them. And a lot of these things are not the way that your Alabama redneck talks about Bigfoot. They don't speak of skinwalkers or witchcraft in that way. There's a long, bloody, storied history here that is sacred to them. So the fact that a lot of times it's been appropriated really heavily into things like horror movies it's not just a fun Hollywood tool. It's very, very disrespectful to the culture, and there's a lot of bitterness there about that kind of thing. So you can imagine, an ignorant white guy coming along to Utah hey, I want to see a skinwalker. Not a great move for you guys. All right, be a little better than that. So a lot of people who have attempted to speak with Native American tribes people about the skinwalkers have been straight up told directly, we don't talk to outsiders about that. That's none of your business. We don't want to talk about that. That's not your place. So trying to be as respectful as possible by making sure that we pay attention to the origins of this story, specifically the name Skinwalker. In their culture, witches are not necessarily bad at all. They're just part of everyday life, kind of like shamans, healers. Those are all witches. Skinwalkers specifically are a type of evil witch. There's no good skinwalkers. There's somebody who has either been overcome by greed or evil and has turned into this creature that, depending on the tribe, has a lot of different characteristics ascribed to it. We're going to get into some of those. I have a lot on skinwalkers, guys. I'm trying to skip through it. One thing I do want to mention, we talk about the bloody history of this area. Witches were blamed for a lot early on, back in the day, And this is most apparent with the Navajo witch purge of 1878, which initially evolved from a cultural response to so many people moving across and onto their lands. So the lands that traditionally the Ute people lived on were being essentially taken over. The Navajo reservations, kind of informally given to them by the government, were discovered to be rich in different mining ores and supplies. So there's a lot of pressure to the state to take that land away from them. So after a series of wars with the U.S. Army, the Navajo were expelled from their land and forced to march to the Bosque Redondo Fort Sumner in New Mexico in what is known as the Long Walk of the Navajo in 1864. So there, the people suffered from bad water, failed crops, illness, and death, reducing their numbers dramatically. After 4 years, the government finally admitted they had made a mistake, and the Navajo were allowed to return to their homeland in the Four Corners areas. So during these years, during this period of struggle, Many of the tribe's members were said to have turned to shapeshifting to escape their terrible conditions. In the meantime, the rest of the tribe were convinced that their gods had deserted them. So once the people had returned to their homeland, their conditions improved, but the dreaded skinwalkers, for whom they blamed, their years on the bleak reservation, were still among them. Accusations of witchcraft and the hunting of the skinwalkers began. When someone found a collection of witch artifacts wrapped in a copy of the Treaty of 1868, the tribal members unleashed deadly consequences. The Navajo witch purge occurred in 1878, in which 40 Navajo suspected witches were killed in order to restore harmony and balance for the tribe. Today, most of the tales or sightings of these witches do not include death or injury, but they're rather more trickster-like, as we'd imagine in our stupid white culture. So again,
Gotcha.
Skinwalker Ranch is located near the Ute Indian Reservation, also referred to by the locals as in the path of the Skinwalker. These people have allegedly long thought that the Navajo put a curse on their tribe in retribution for the many transgressions, and since then, Skinwalkers have plagued the Ute people. So, that's as brief as I can condense, a literal shit ton of history between the tribes, the U.S. Army, the reservations. I mean, the Buffalo Soldiers are in this story. The Freemasons are in this story. There's a lot. There's a lot of really fascinating shit here. So, again, I'm going to skip through the pages and pages I have on Skinwalkers because this shit is interesting to me. There are many versions. They have different powers like shape-shifting, controlling creatures of the night. They're really hard to kill. Sometimes they're huge. Sometimes they can possess a person by making eye contact. Essentially, every variation of the Native American tribes in this area has their own slightly different version of the lore of the Skinwalker. So, there's even things such as, to tell if it's a Skinwalker, if you shine a light at them, their eyes will be bright red. And then when they're in human form, their eyes will look more animal. So there's quite a few different little tricks and things here. But that brings us to the end of what I'm going to call our history portion, because I'm getting a lot of blank stares from Brett's face.
I'm good. I'm soaking this up. I love this stuff. I love history.
Okay, I also love this stuff, which is why I wrote, I think that was like 10 pages of that. I'm not kidding. I'll put that on the blog for you guys. I spent a lot of time, I now realize, was wasted on that, but maybe one person will read the blog and educate themselves on the First Peoples culture, and it's difficult to find in written form. And I'm talking in a form that's not some old white Harvard dude who wrote a paragraph for Wikipedia. I'm talking like the one archive page that I'll link to you guys is fucking excellent because it's not just a reciting of facts. It's talking about the context of Native American beliefs and cultures with what happened and what they believe and the legends and how that affects their worldview and their growth and development. Again, a lot of their history is oral, so finding it in written form is difficult. And even then, they don't want to pass it on to strangers. Totally understandable. It's like a private thing. It's like a family history, right? You're not telling that to a stranger. If you are, get therapy. So, Brett, would you like to hit on some of the fun shit in part 2, the phenomena?
Yeah, gotta go past the 10 pages that you wrote.
That I just summed up in like 5 minutes. You're welcome.
I know, but last time I read the wrong spot because I followed the wrong way. So, part 2, the phenomena. According to Keller and Knapp's book, they saw or investigated evidence of close to 100 incidents that include vanishing and mutilated cattle, sightings of unidentified flying objects, or orbs, large animals with piercing red eyes that they say were unscathed when struck by bullets, and a visible object emitting destructive magnetic fields. So, a fun fact, a list of all the entities that have been reported at the ranch is available at our website, skinwalkerranch.com. The site is not officially affiliated with Skinwalker Ranch or the scientific team, despite the name.
I'm going to pause you there because I did edit that since you printed that, I guess. So it's not affiliated with the ranch, but it is run by a man named Ryan Skinner, who is an author. He's written a shit ton of books. This is very confusing. So if you're to look for skinwalkerranch.com, this site will pop up. which is not the official site of Skinwalker-ranch.com, which is the official site. The fuck is up with that? I don't know.
Well,
I
it's
guess
like
they
whitehouse.com, whitehouse.gov, two completely different things. One's porn, one's government.
It's all porn depending what you're into. Let's see.
That's not foreplay.
True.
Don't kink shame your, I don't know, rich white men in Washington. I don't know. I'm on one today. So, despite the
White
name,
men?
oh, don't get triggered. Despite the name, this site is actually a better source of information once you can sort through a lot of. There's, back that up. It's a great source of information. There's also a lot of lint in that pocket before you get to the quarters. You know what I'm saying? There's some pretty crazy shit on this site. It has some good stuff. For example, there are links to actual published, or I don't know if they're published, but they're NIDS reports. So the previous owner of the ranch, before the guy who owns it on the show, he funded an institute, which I'm not going to talk too much about now because we get to that later. And they did a lot of research and a lot of studies, a lot of experimentation there. And some of their reports that they've done on things like cattle mutilation, local sightings of strange things, something called an ice circle, which is fucking fascinating all on its own. These reports are on the site. Like, you can click them and read. And I've read through, I would say I read through most of them. There were some, like the fucking flying saucer ones. But I'm not going to read 20 pages of reports, because at one time they had set up a hotline for people in the area to report UFO sightings. And by the time I scrolled to the bottom, it was like case number 689 or something ridiculous. Like,
Oh, wow.
they took so many cases on this, and they were trying really hard to be thorough and document them all, but I'm not going to sit and read through all that. Like, I'm just not. I did read a lot about the cattle mutilations, which we'll get into later. There's something called an ice circle that appeared, really fascinating as well. So if you can go to this site and dig and not be turned away by the little more far out stuff that is also available there, really, really good shit. I'll let Bret continue. Well, actually, Yvette, we haven't heard from you yet. Why don't you take that 1905 alien encounter?
All right. All right. So the Locke family had a very special guest arrive on their property. What was interesting about him was his, oh my God, crap. I'm sorry, my reading is horrible.
Garb. That's okay. It's clothing.
Garb. My apologies. On the outside, he was dressed in garments of the 20th century man, but apparently they could see a dazzling blue jumpsuit peeking out from beneath his clothing. This encounter was passed down from generation to generation because it is believed that the odd being came to deliver a warning about the land. He gave the Locks express instructions on where to dig and not to dig on their homestead.
So that's one of the weird first early encounters, I guess. Very strange shit. I believe the first official cattle mutilation was reported in 1930. There were reports of cattle mutilations occurring earlier than that, so I want to say this is maybe the first documented one. So unfortunately for ranchers in the southwestern areas of the U.S., particularly in the Four Corners area, cattle mutilations are actually not uncommon. So in 1930, Christopher Locke reported the first incident on the ranch. So I believe it's the first incident on the ranch, not the area. Because of the nature of what is done to the cows, their eyes, tongues, and sexual organs are removed. Some ufologists believe that they're being experimented on by aliens. So this is where some of the far out shit comes. Blood is never found, and the operations are performed with surgical precision. Some investigators of this phenomenon claim that the procedures are done with lasers. After the extraterrestrials are finished with the bodies, they supposedly toss them out of their craft to the ground below.
Well, that's not a pleasant thought or sight.
Dude, I wish that you guys could read these reports, these very graphic.
I've seen some of the photos. Yeah, I've seen the photos of these.
Well, this is for me. I don't know. Anyone can show you a picture of a mutilated cow and be like, "Look what the aliens did," and I'm like, "Suck my dick, dude." I don't like that's. But these NIDS reports are insane, like the way that a scientist would write a report, like just what they're observing. It's not, I think this or I think that. It's, I observed this, this cut, this wound, this injury. I tested this. Here's a microscopic view of the hair. Like, it's very, very systematic and thorough, which I personally love. I find that to be much more compelling for me, and I'm going to sit and read through the whole thing, and I'm going to be interested by it, as opposed to, some jackass on Facebook throwing up a dead cow and claiming aliens came down and sucked out its uterus. I don't know.
This is a professional, someone who knows and understands like
Yes.
everything versus some common Joe like us, and we don't really know much about it.
So
it's a little better.
It's so much better. And let me tell you about one of the stranger ones that I read. Again, these are officially published NIDS reports from Robert Bigelow's early attempts to do research in this ranch. We'll get into him and all that later, but this particular mutilation, so they call it a cookie cutter imprint. It's almost as if someone takes a cookie cutter to the eye of the animal and sucks out the eye. And there's a very clear circular impression, and the eyeball is fucking gone, and there is no blood. Same thing to the genitals, oftentimes are removed. The tongue will be removed. In this particular one that I was reading about, I wish I had written a quote down, but they said the heart was essentially shredded. There was no blood in the heart. The tissue of the heart was badly damaged, and it was like decomposed at a rate of several weeks more than the rest of the body. And the body was less than a couple hours old when they. So, for example, ranch owner sees the cow alive. 2 hours later, he sees it laying down. It's dead. It has weird wounds. The ears. The ears are fucking removed. And one of the interesting things about this report is they do zoom in. They do like a microscopic view, essentially, of the hairs that are cut. And they're not perfect. It's not a perfect cut, like you cut a piece of paper, but it's pretty damn close. It's not torn. It's not ripped. There's no blood. It is cut like with something like maybe scissors or something. Not quite surgical, but something extremely sharp. So what the fuck is doing this shit? Like,
I have
no
a question.
blood.
Yes.
Is there any, maybe in the article it would share or anything, any known instruments that can do that? Because I never heard of anything like that. It's like, how the hell, you know what I mean?
That's
never
what I
heard
was
that.
wondering.
How do you, that's
I don't
crazy.
know. And that's one of the it sucks because it's good and it's bad, because yes, this is a scientific report, but they're also really not throwing a lot of guesses in there. They will say, we accurately determined this or this could not have been the cause, or this or this. It's really funny because a lot of these reports are a scientific exploration of something that's claimed and then disproven. For example, one dude contacted NIDS and said that he had an alien implant in his leg. And they did the full workup on this thing that was removed from his leg, which was sent to their lab, which was tested. They did like a material analysis, really fucking thorough. And then at the end, they're like, this is a piece of iron that was basically calcified and hard tissue formed around it to protect the bone. It probably came off a tool while he was farming. This is not extraterrestrial in Oregon. Like, and that's like the 6-page report is like, it comes up with, and there's photos of what was removed from his leg, the mineral composites of the material. I love their fucking commitment to this. And they went the full, let's assume that we don't know what this is. And then at the end, they're like, yeah, this mass formed around a like piece of a pickaxe or a tool that flew off and embedded in his leg. The body tried to protect the bone, essentially.
Itself, yeah.
And then it was surgically removed, and this guy claims he has an alien implant. So that's what they came up with. They're like, this is a farm tool, a piece of a farm tool. It's not alien. And I was like, I read the whole thing. I was like waiting for the punchline. I'm like, God damn it. So there's several of those, which to me lends validity, because they're not just, they're giving the same time and attention to detail to every claim or everything that has possible unknown origin. So
whether it's legit or bullshit, they're investigating.
Right. And the thing with the cow, though, was the way they described the heart. They said that it was very difficult or almost impossible to test the heart because it was so damaged that just touching it shredded it. Like that's how it, and so what I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, the fuck would even do that? They
Yeah.
also have a long I really wish I could just pull these up and show them to you, but where they tested different areas of the cow, like the face, groin, internal intestines, exposure to radiation and magnetic or microwave emissions. Okay, so they did like close up microscopic views of the before and after of skin being different areas of skin from the body of the cow being exposed to different levels of microwave radiation. Fascinating shit to me, the nerd. Loved it. Loved every second of it. This is what I've been doing all day. And eating pizza because I'm hungover. I don't know how I got on that tangent. Really, really interesting stuff to me. But the heart of the cow being tender enough to shred 2 hours after its death is just something that I'll never.
It's honestly like it's mind blowing to me because it's like what can do that? There's I've never heard of anything that can actually do that. You know what I mean? So I'm just
I don't
like
know.
it's I'm like mind blown. It's like that how is that even possible? And the
None of it
fact that you
makes
can't
sense.
even touch it. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. But I love how you were saying that like they were doing the research and everything and it's from actual scientists, not just the common Joe, you know? So that's like that's what makes it more interesting because like these
Mm-hmm.
are actual professionals, people who study this shit. And it's like they can't even explain it. You know what I mean? So I'm
No,
just
they
like,
cannot.
wow, like what? It's so mind blowing. Like I didn't even know all that, and I like I've been like obsessed with Skinwalker Ranch for like years, and I didn't even know that. You know what I
I don't
mean? So
think
it's
I've
like, wow.
ever had the access to read something that detailed because that's the kind of person I
Mm-hmm.
am. I don't want to read a fucking like summary article on it. Like I want the good shit.
You
And
want
I
the
want
Right.
to
autopsy report?
I want the autopsy. I'm not kidding. I want every line
Yeah.
of that autopsy report and I want to read through it myself, whether or not I understand all the words. Because I swear to God, half this shit that I read, I did not understand.
Google.
Thank, thank God there were photos, you know, because I need to send you guys the cattle mutilation ones because I've
Ooh.
heard my
That's
whole
that's
life
that's a
about
whole
that,
episode all in itself. It just covered cattle mutilations,
and the
and
end result is
also
question mark. Like what the
and
fuck?
also
We don't know.
there's also a great metal band by the same name.
Oh God, I hate you so much. Um, science,
Namaste. Namaste.
metal bands, fucking Matthew McConaughey and a fucking Lincoln over here. All right,
Don't hate.
how are you gonna stop me from hating?
I think I shower more than him. Is he like one of those that says like he only showers once every 3 days or something?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
Him and like Ryan Gosling and it's like
your face.
oh no. You're cute, but
Is
not
it?
that cute.
And also Jake Gyllenhaal was on that too,
Yes, that's
big
another
time.
one. Yeah.
Maybe less, like maybe once a week or something. His was crazy. His made me cringe, whatever it was.
I
It was
it
bad.
just I get the whole don't wash your hair every day. Like as a former hairstylist, I get that. I understand why, but not shower every day or clean yourself. Like,
Okay, stand by. As a bitch who don't have any
sorry.
hair, what is with the not washing your hair thing? What is
Well,
that?
it depends. It depends on your hair type.
Background, like this is all of that, but then there's also like tinfoil hat reasons.
What do you mean?
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Then I guess maybe you talk about your part because I'm talking about something else. There's people that believe that certain, like the establishment or certain shampoos or conditioners, like there's chemicals that are unnecessary in there that your skin will absorb through your head that'll cause long term damage or control. And that is not me saying that. That is people that do believe that, and that's a
Conspiracy
reason to
theorist.
not take care of your like. And that's also goes with the people that don't like to wear shoes because they believe that your nervous system needs to be connected with the earth. Like there's it's some people call it like hippie shit, but like there also is some validity to some of the chemicals that are used.
Which is true because in shampoos there are it depends on the shampoos. There are certain chemicals in there that are actually damaging to your hair. That's why a lot of people that use like any type of or certain brands that you could buy at any store they have certain chemicals or stuff in it that actually makes your hair fall off. Like it kills the cuticle. I'm sorry, the follicle of the hair, and you start losing more hair. It's natural for us to lose hair.
They just try to slow it down and do it like every 3 days or something. Like,
Right, but at the same time, it's good to have your natural oils absorbed, like in your hair and whatnot. But there are people out there who do have extremely oily hair that they do need to wash it every day. That's obviously something different, you know. Me, I don't wash my hair every day, but my hair's not that oily. But like for our daughter, her hair gets really oily, and she should be washing it at least every other day. But some people, they can get away with it. Some people can't. Also, just a fun fact. I don't like saying this. It's like kind of like a taboo word in the cosmetology industry, but I hope it
do
doesn't. You guys
tell.
don't get like, head lice do not like dirty hair. So if you know anyone who gets head lice, do not wash your hair for a while. They do not like dirty hair. There's a lot of people like, oh, wash your hair, it'll come off. No, they love clean hair. So
Good to
yeah.
know.
Yeah, just a little FYI out there. Put some gel and stuff in there. I know we're getting off topic, but just
PSA.
share that. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I asked, honestly, like, I'm like the queen of getting off topic. I'm just like watching the circus burn right now because Brett's so fucking high. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to save this somehow.
I like Hot Topic.
So I shower, I'm OCD as shit. So I shower like a minimum of twice a day. Is that bad for my hair? Okay.
It can't. I mean, for your hair, depends on it. But if you do wash yourself too much, you can lose all your natural oils because natural oils are actually good for you. But you don't want to be like these celebrities. They only wash like once a week. That's just gross.
Imagine
really
being rich enough to shower 4 times a day, and you only shower once. Like, what the? Like, you're living the dream.
Right?
You have unlimited water bill money. You can
Right?
buy the nice shampoos, and you're only showering. But I would live in my
Like-
shower. I would install an endless water tank, and I would have a fucking pillow in there, and I would just
Nice
be in the
little
shower.
bath.
Yeah, I would just dissolve into my down the drain I go.
I
Oops.
just, I can't. And then when I get too sweaty, I just want to shower. I can't understand how, especially in the summer month, how could someone not want? Oh God.
So
sorry.
I came home from the pool yesterday, blackout fucking drunk, like blitzed. Okay, like, and I still somehow took a shower because even though it was like my 3rd shower of the day, and at some point during this shower, I apparently like flooded my bathroom because there was like a ocean in there. I folded and put away my clothes and like took my vitamins and stupid shit, but I flooded my bathroom. Super great.
You're probably trying to clean the restroom while you're at it.
I have done that before. My last blackout drunk venture, I not only folded and hung up my dirty clothes, took my vitamins, washed my face, moisturized, but I also had like the cleaning. So I was like cleaning my bathroom while like 0 fucking blackout drunk, like not a single thought in my brain.
That's like tweaker shit.
That's talent.
Yeah.
That's talent.
Some call it psychosis, some call it talent. I like the talent
I call
word
it
better.
pure talent.
Thank you. Love that for me. Pure talent. Not an alcoholic. This is why I don't drink right now, though. Because I drink for violence. Should not be doing that. I know that we got off on a little tangent here. Brett, did this bring you back down to earth? Because you are floating, sir.
No, I'm fine. I've been grounded. I'm on the beach, as you can tell.
Talking about metallic like stuff in the. I'm thinking the movie Signs where they have the little foils in. I'm like, what is he talking about? Yeah. Whatever. Let me have some. I need some right now.
I don't know what you're smoking, but why the fuck aren't you sharing?
Right. Rude. Selfish.
God.
It was called Flying Saucer.
Oh my God.
Of course it was.
Perfect.
Of course it was.
But that was a while ago, though. I'm good. Like, I'm just drinking my water and my Jack and Coke.
For anyone wondering what drug I'm on, it's called existential rage. Fucking bottomless, fathomless, just black hole of hate. That's what I'm on. Don't do drugs, kids. Get mad. Get pissed.
And if you want to learn more about black holes, check out our CERN episodes.
If you want to learn more about black holes, just ask Brett's boyfriend. So, Poor Brett.
I'm used to being the punching bag, folks.
Who are you? Okay.
That's why you're loved. That's why you're loved.
Oh. Yeah, the train is not only off the tracks, it is on fire. It is floating away somehow. I didn't know trains could do that, but it's gone. It has been abducted. Brett's flying saucer, I'm guessing Indica, probably just fucked him right up. Are you
You're
sure?
wrong, man.
Hybrid?
Yeah, I'm positive. Nope.
Do you even know what was in there? You don't look like you know anything right now.
It's called sativa.
Why are you acting this way then? All right, so we're going to move on.
I'm scared.
Oh my
In
god.
a good way.
Let's get the train back on track.
Yeah, Brett, are you able to read right now?
Of course.
Why don't you try it?
So for 1967, the UFO flap occurs. UFO sightings started to become prevalent around Skinwalker Ranch in the 1950s. However, the activity accelerated into the following decade. Some locals have even claimed to have been abducted by aliens. Because of the location of the property, which is close to the Ute Reservation, many locals believe this may also be another reason for the visitations. Much of Native American folklore revolves around the, quote, star people. These are the ancestors of various tribes that descended to Earth from the heavens to impart their knowledge to humans, thereby assisting them in their development as a species.
All right, so...
The creators.
Right. And I'm just definitely, like, so much more interested in, like, Native American beliefs than I am, like, ufology. Like, I don't know. So I'm going to let Yvette take this, the frequent flyers section, and I'm going to pick up when it says the 1996 article.
Okay. Let me see what. Oh, I see it. Okay.
Take your time, girl.
So, thank you. So Terry Sherman got so spooked by the happenings of the new cattle ranch that 18 months after moving his family to the ranch, he had sold it off. Him and his wife Gwen shared their chilling experience with local reporters in June 1996. They seen mysterious crop circles by the Sherman said. The Sherman said the UFOs and the systematic and repeating mutilation of their cattle in an oddly surgical and bodiless manner. Within 3 months of the following story's publication, Las Vegas real estate magnate of UFO enthusiastic group. I can't speak right now.
Nobody can. It's fine.
I can't spoke. Robert Bigelow.
No good talk.
Right. Bought the property for $200,000. Some of the more spectacular local theories suggest that the timing of all this was no coincidence. The Shermans, some say, fabricated or greatly exaggerated many of these stories in order to drive up interest, intrigue, and property prices prior to selling the ranch. Other reports seem to indicate that things were far worse for the Sherman families that even the article indicated. Some accounts claim that part of the Sherman's purchase agreement includes clauses that forbid any form of digging on the ranch and strict instructions to inform previous owners well ahead of attempt of such activities.
Excellent. We're going to have like a full spit take, like reel of just us mispronouncing words constantly, because like every single one of us do that. And I'm sitting there like, absolutely, this is spectacular vernacular. And then I try to pronounce it. I'm like, bleh, bleh, bleh. So the article that started it all, we've mentioned a few times, kind of set the tone for that. Some really, really good information in here. And it's what introduced the public to the Sherman's story. During this era, they actually were still going by pseudonyms, which if you read the book, which I'm about halfway through the Hunt for the Skinwalker book, which is excellent, a lot of firsthand accounts. I meant to have it all read, but instead I got drunk like an idiot. They're actually referred to by pseudonyms, the Gormans. And of course, they're actually the Shermans, and that whole cover-up didn't last very long. Everyone's like, yeah, we know who you are. So this article about the Shermans and the family, we're going to set the tone a little bit, because the first sentence, this guy is not a believer, clearly. I'm just going to say that. And I'll quote, "For a species that supposedly don't exist, aliens sure do get around." And like, you pretty much know what the tone of the article is going to be after that.
I feel like that should be a t-shirt.
It should be. So, and he continues his little sassy commentary. "Of course, everyone knows that humans are the only intelligent life in the universe. UFOs don't exist. All crop circles are faked by two English blokes. Cattle mutilations are carried out by laser-wielding coyotes, and Bigfoot will have a sizable bill to pay if he ever returns that rental costume." Well, not everyone. I'm like, oh boy, zing, okay. This is how we're
Shots fired.
reporting. This is our
Right.
news reporting. I cut a bit out here, but they're like, they then go on to kind of like mock people even more who express beliefs in extraterrestrial life. And then they actually get into talking about the Shermans. So Terry and Gwen Sherman wish some of that teeming intergalactic life would find somewhere else to hang out. Like, I'm telling you, 11 out of 10 for sass. I bet this
The
guy wears rubber
sarcasm
pants.
is
Yeah.
bleeding out of this article.
This guy owns something Paisley, I'm telling you right now.
Mhm.
For it's just my hot take. Just call this guy up like, "I only have one question about your article. Were you wearing a Paisley shirt?" He'd be like, "Stop calling me."
It's got one of those bedazzled Western wallets. Like,
Or like the sparkle butt jeans. I don't even know. Apple bottom jeans.
That's what I was thinking of right now too.
Back to aliens. Stay on topic, guys. So for more than a year now, at the time of this 1996 article, the Sherman's 480-acre ranch just south of Fort... I thought I knew how to pronounce this. I thought it was Duquesne, but they pronounce it much different on the show. Fort D in Uintah County.
There you go.
I thought it was Duquesne, and then I listened to them talk about it on the show, and they say something completely else. In Uintah County has been a hotbed for UFOs and bizarre paranormal activity. Weirdness, but even the Shermans, who've witnessed the strange happenings with their own eyes and video camera, have trouble accepting as reality. The Shermans, their teenage son, and 10-year-old daughter have seen 3 specific types of UFOs repeatedly during the past 15 months. 1, a small box-like craft with a white light, a 40-foot-long object, and a huge ship the size of several football fields. They've seen one of these crafts emit a wavy red ray or light beam as it flies along. They've seen other airborne lights, some of which have emerged from orange circular doorways that seem to appear in midair. They've videotaped 2 of the sightings. They once discovered 3 circles of flattened grass, each about 8 feet across, in a triangular pattern about 30 feet from each other. In a nearby pasture, other strange soil impressions have been found, circles about 3 feet wide and a foot or 2 deep, with the dirt in the center perfectly flattened. One of the flying lights followed Gwen's car on her way home from work one night, and while out in one of the fields with the family dogs, Terry heard male voices speaking an unfamiliar language. The voices seemed to be about 25 feet above him, but Terry couldn't see a thing. The dogs were frantic. They barked and growled before running off to the ranch house, Terry said. So the Shermans have linked the sightings with the death or disappearance of 7 of their cows. 4 have disappeared without a trace. 3 others have been found dead and partially mutilated. We've seen the UFOs enough, and we know pretty much what the craft look like, and I think it's definitely associated with the cattle mutilations. When we see the crafts and then the cattle, we have problems, Sherman said. Keeping in mind that the Shermans actually moved to this location with plans to raise prize cattle. So they're very, very expensive. These aren't just dairy cows. Yeah. These are insanely expensive. Like, this is their livelihood, is raising these cattle. So every single one is like a huge blow. A shit ton more, I guess, eyewitness accounts are thrown in here from people beside the Shermans. I cut those out for the sake of being concise. Because, we stay on track so well. And then again, this sassy Mr. Paisley shirt man is still emphasizing there is no hard evidence whatsoever, and overall expressing a really skeptical tone. Love that. So it goes on back to the family. In April of 1995, the family got a taste of what was to come. Terry stepped out of the house to check on a cow that was calving in the field south of the house when he noticed lights in the field. He assumed they belonged to recreation vehicles, maybe kids from a neighboring farm riding 4-wheelers. That didn't make a lot of sense, though, because the ranch is isolated, 3 miles from the main road, and access is cut off by a creek and a huge rock ridge.
It's the kind of driveway I need.
So I did read this story in full detail as well in the book. they thought they were, so him and his kids set out to like chase this thing, thinking it's an RV, and they're gonna like sneak up on it and kick these guys off the land. And then the RV takes off from them, and then the RV lights go over the trees, and they're like, "Ah, oh, fuck, it's not clearly not an RV." Like, and they couldn't hear anything, by the way. So like, just confused, but your mind will always try to come up with something like, I don't know what this is, but the size of it, RV for sure. And then of course now it's a flying RV. So on and on it goes with the Shermans telling their stories. In the months to follow, the Shermans saw myriad lights and flying objects, including more than a dozen in one evening. Sightings generally occur during a new moon and often when the sky is overcast or stormy. Their most recent encounter, as of the writing of this article, took place in May during a thunderstorm. Terry and his son believe they may have communicated with one of the crafts because they tried to sneak up on it. It kind of rose into the air, flashed its light at them 3 times, and then disappeared. So soon after sightings began, the Shermans found one of the cows dead in a field. It had a peculiar hole in the center of its left eyeball, but was otherwise untouched with no trace of blood. There was no evidence of predators, footprints, or tire tracks, and a strange chemical-like odor was present. That odor is often reported, by the way, with cattle mutilations. So there's several, I guess, criteria of cattle mutilations, which I didn't know. The surgical precision, the lack of blood, the odor, the removal of reproductive organs and or either tongue, eyes, or ears, or all of the above. Oftentimes pregnant cows will be attacked and the baby will be removed. So that's pretty creepy, right? Did you know that?
Yeah. And there's no
I
incision
didn't-
for the stomach.
The
I
stomach?
did not know that part. Oh shit.
So, yeah, so here's another one. So later, another dead cow was found with a similar hole in its left eye and a 6-inch hole only about an inch deep carved out of its rectum. The same chemical smell was noticeable. Again, cattle mutilations have been reported all across the U.S. In classic mutilation cases, the anus is cored out and the cow's udders and genitalia are removed, all with laser-like precision and no visible sign of blood. The Shermans, who keep close watch on their cattle, believe they may have actually interrupted the mutilators before they were able to finish. And then cows again began disappearing completely, to include, like, one time they were looking for one of their cows and they followed its tracks in the snow and then the tracks fucking disappeared. No cow, nothing. No other tracks. And then above, Terry noticed that the tops of the trees appeared to have been cut off.
My thing
Not
is,
cool.
and maybe you already covered this, but my thing is, I mean, it's called Skinwalker Ranch. Obviously, we all know what Skinwalker is and everything. And then there's aliens. It's like how I'm just.
It doesn't.
It's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, it's just
Yes.
how
Because there are so many things. Like, for example, I have a strong belief that most paranormal activity comes from electromagnetic fields and geographical anomalies, essentially, in an area, because those can have a profound physical effect on certain people while completely not affecting other people. And we'd actually, I believe that there's multiple times when they show that on the show, they talk about electromagnetic fields having physiological effects on humans. And I've always said that about poltergeist activity, quote unquote, hauntings. I'm like, I promise you, there's something that you can't see or hear that your body can sense that is having these hallucination type effects on you. But that's the skeptic in me, whereas other people are like, oh my God, totally a ghost. I'm like, electromagnetic anomalies. So every time that you think that there's one thing that you might be able to explain one of these strange aspects, there's other shit. So obviously, there's a shit ton. Now they're called UAPs, right? So unidentified aerial phenomena, as opposed to UFOs, which is kind of the tin hat word. There's a shit ton of UAPs on the ranch. Super, super well documented. Shit tons of firsthand accounts, like infinite firsthand accounts. A lot of it now is on film, on radar. Yes, Brett.
Well, I mean, also seeing weird animals that aren't quite correct anatomically. There's also, I mean, just it's just a hotbed of just so much paranormal and unexplained, and it's almost like a Bermuda Triangle on land or over the swath of land.
No, that's absolutely correct. That is the weird thing about this place is it's not just one thing. It's almost everything imaginable to do with unexplained phenomena is happening here on this 512-acre ranch. And we're actually about to get into that a little bit. And I did throw this in here just to have a little devil's advocate moment, but there's a self-published blog by a UK-based researcher. His name is Terry Hooper. I'm not sure if he's the original publisher of this, but he publishes an article, which is supposedly an interview between somebody and a neighbor of this ranch who claims that it's all made up for fame and everything. And I'm going to make sure to link that on the blog. So if you really want to go read this, it's kind of, it reads as a little cuckoo to me, but want to make sure you have all angles, you know, can't be missing that. So we're going to talk about a more comprehensive list of all the bullshit that's happened on this ranch. So we've got cattle mutilations, obviously. We've got sightings of strange humanoid figures. So UFOs, light beams hitting the basin, poltergeist phenomena, like we talked about, the appearance of portals, balls of light or orbs, radiation blasts, electronic malfunctions, a lot of that, the ice rings, the black triangles. I mean, like, I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, but it's actually like a Bigfoot type creature that's been sighted in there. I mean, shit tons of Skinwalker sightings, large wolves, large animals. Everything that could possibly happen in one place happens here. The question becomes, what the fuck?
And then one thing we didn't really cover, which I know you said you're going to put a lot of this in the blog for people to see, but a skinwalker is basically like a shapeshifter, right? You said that they're evil, they're witches, but they
Correct.
they take on the appearances of animals or people or loved ones, or
again, accounts vary widely. Usually it takes on the form of some abnormally large or threatening animal. And it's not an animal that looks like an animal, really. It's like an imitation of an animal, like your worst nightmare animal kind of thing. Supposedly,
Like
in most legends. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. If you actually go like on YouTube and stuff, you will find videos of skinwalkers. Now, whether they're real or not, I can't sit here and tell you for sure it's not how or it is or not. But there's one very famous one. It's all over TikTok, social media. It's I don't know if the person was driving or walking. I believe he was walking, and from a distance, he hears a man yelling for help, and he's recording, and I don't honestly, I can't remember if he responds to the guy or what, but he's like just yelling for help, like he's lost. And then he turns, and you just kind of see the silhouette, and I think he does say like, "Hey, are you okay?" or something like that, and then just like the guy freezes. He does something so weird. And all the videos I've seen of alleged skinwalkers and things like that, they take a form, like you said, Brett, of something, and they mimic it, but there's clearly something off about them, which that's how like, hey,
And that's what's really interesting is it kind of takes away from your immediate knee jerk, well, it's probably a big dog, because everyone who describes seeing one is very clear about that it's not right. It's
right.
XYZ thing, it's a wolf, but it's not a wolf. It's definitely not right. Like, it sticks out to them. And of course that can be the mind, when it comes to like YouTube videos and shit, I have a very hard time because my mind again is sitting there thinking of all the ways this could be staged, faked, special effects, digitally recreated, CGI, or even just, kind of low tech guy in a costume. Or there's so many ways that shit can be artificially produced. Very tough for me to even pick one that I think that's got to be, it's tough. I haven't seen anything foolproof yet.
No, I agree with you, because anything right now, pictures, it could all be edited. It could all be fake. You never know. But at the same time, I always kind of go with well, what if, because I'm
sure.
really into that. So, you know what I mean? So I try to keep an open mind. I mean, my thing is like, okay, well, if it doesn't exist, great. But if it does exist, at least I kind of have an idea, and I'm gonna like just stay the fuck away from it. You know what I mean? So I'll be
I'd
over
try
there.
to
You know,
pet it.
you'll probably catch it. Yeah, like my new
Dude,
pet. You know,
like, don't worry, I'll take him on walks, I'll feed him, I'll
can we keep
sacrifice my
it?
enemies to him. Don't worry about that. So, what are our thoughts right now, Brett? Let's hear from the smokers gallery.
Um, there's no doubt weird phenomena has happened here for a long time, and it got to the point where the U.S. government got involved and put together millions of dollars to do research. And when the government's throwing that kind of money at something, there's, to me, there's something there. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So I don't know exactly what's going on there. I know, to my knowledge, I think the ranch is cut off and isolated and like basically private property. You can't get on it, but I mean, I would love to be able to go to this ranch and spend a couple days out there and just see what I see. Like, there's just so many crazy stories, like where there's even like, I think a story like where one of the cows is like in distress and the farmer or the owner goes to find him, and that would be like interrupting, like one of the mutilations like you were discussing, but basically came back and found the cow stuck inside like this shed that the cow wouldn't be able to get into. Like,
Yeah,
just
it was
weird, just weird.
multiple. I think it was 4 full-grown prize bulls that were herded into that tiny little shed. The door was like
Which is
still locked. Yeah,
where it's like physically impossible to do. Like, how does that happen? Like, it's
right.
just stuff like that. And then with the portals and to me, if the government's going there and not saying anything and spending a lot of money, that something's going on. That's all I know.
Mm-hmm.
You are absolutely correct. I believe something is going on. What that something is, I desperately want to have some kind of scientific explanation. I'll give you this last section. We'll talk a little bit more about our theories, but TechBuzz did an interview with Brandon Fugal, who is the current owner of Skinwalker Ranch, and he said, the newspaper reports have made their way to talking about the history of the ranch. But the newspaper reports, like the one we just read, specifically that one, made their way to aerospace billionaire Robert Bigelow, who we'll talk more about later. At the time, he was funding the National Institute for Discovery Science, or NIDS, as we're going to call it. So cattle mutilations were super well documented during and after the Sherman family's tenure on the ranch, and the area came to national prominence after this report. So he ultimately purchased the ranch from the Sherman family to conduct further research. He was so fascinated by what he read and what he heard about this place that he wanted to throw a lot of money at it. So he straight up flew on a private jet to the Uintah Basin to meet with the Shermans, determine whether it was legitimate, and then he offered them $200,000 for the ranch. And he immediately set up like basically a science base there, a focused scientific investigation to determine the nature of the phenomenon, as he puts it. But he brought a massive team of well-respected scientists and experts to the ranch to kind of spearhead this effort, and he locked down the property. So this is where the property starts getting locked down. There actually used to be a public road through the property, which he petitioned and was granted to have completely shut down. I believe in 2016 that road was closed. No trespassing signs and all that were posted, and the only place that a general tourist can get a view of the ranch is from like a ridge quite a distance away, and you can look over the ranch, but that's as close as you can get. So we already talked about Keller, who wrote the book. He with George Knapp. He wrote that in 2005. Published a book, blah, blah, blah. Scientific investigation of the property. Talked a shit ton about the kind of investigation and things they were doing there. So by 2008, Bigelow's effort and activity at the ranch captured the attention of the United States government and the Pentagon. The project and Mr. Bigelow subsequently entered into a partnership regarding a Pentagon-funded black budget program, investigating the strange phenomenon and activity reported on the ranch. And that was kind of the beginning of the end for Mr. Bigelow, who moved on to much greener, more strange pastures, and Brandon Fugal ended up taking over ownership of the ranch, which is how we got the show we have today. Thoughts, Brett?
No, it's just the whole thing's interesting. Just the history, the warring tribes, the espionage and traitorous deeds, the how the witches of the West, these skinwalkers are made from. Like you said, there's not a good skinwalker. The procedures to become one or whatever are pretty dark and demented.
Well,
And then
the thing is that white culture typically hears the word witch and immediately associates that with a negative occultic horror type connotation. In Native American culture, witches are common and sacred and not evil. And
like
like I
healers,
said,
right?
healers, shamans, medicine men, they have a lot of different witches in their culture. Specifically, skinwalkers are there's certain parts of the lore that I was reading where they're talking about how when a tribe's member is in training to become a witch, they are exposed to both quote unquote like good magic and bad magic to learn everything there is about it. And oftentimes people who become skinwalkers become tempted or unable to handle, they're like too weak to handle reading or learning about the bad magic, and they succumb to it, and they become skinwalkers, and they are like exorcised from the tribe. Essentially, they're not permitted.
And
there are different.
That seems like a pretty important position to be selected for that role, whether you're like an empath or intuitive or whatever, but also to pay attention, like to know to only eat 3 of this leaf, but not 4, like knowing that kind of knowledge.
There are some really, really wild articles. There's on the unofficial skinwalkerranch.com with no dash, there's a files tab. And there are some lovely, fascinating, super tinfoil hat bits on there, usually without any context whatsoever. Like, one of the files is how to summon a skinwalker, and you click on it, and it's this like black and white, unformatted HTML page that ends with "good luck." Like
90s
really,
webpage.
really wild shit on it. I loved it because some of it is so weird and so like it's like someone copy and pasted a forum user onto a blank page and posted it with no tables, formatting, nothing. And then, of course, there's some really fascinating, very valid reports from NIDS investigators, even Keller and Knapp. I mean, there's a shit ton of good shit. And there's a shit ton of weird shit. It's kind of like I mentioned earlier, there's so much happening. Obviously, it caught the attention of some people, including the government, which I don't know if you've been following any news lately. The government has pretty much, in the last couple of years, given up all pretense of pretending that UFOs aren't real. There are multiple government-funded programs, for example. Let me see if I have this in here.
And nobody seems to care. Like, it's literally in the news, and people are like,
I fucking
because we already knew.
Well, think about it. The government has spent... I think the government spent 100 years telling you that anyone who believes in this shit is clearly fucking crazy, and now they're finally like releasing that death grip a little bit and be like, just kidding, it's real. We suck.
Or it's a weather balloon.
Think about this. So people are still confused and they still want to say, that's crazy, there's no such... So imagine that you're the US government. Imagine that you suck that much dick. So UFOs are coming into your airspace. Flying objects that you don't know if they are manned or not. You don't know if they're from this planet or not. And they could be from, a kind of rival power, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't know anything about this. Of course you're going to say it's fucking fake if you legitimately don't know anything about this. Because the next question that everyone will ask you, if you were to say this is real, here's what we have. The next question everyone is going to ask you is it dangerous? Mm-hmm. Is it here to attack us? Can you protect us from this? And their answer is going to be what? No, we can't. And that I firmly believe is the real underlying. It's a power and control thing. The government is not going to admit to something that they will then have to admit multiple things, such as, I don't know how to fight it. I don't know how to defend us against this, because nobody wants to hear the government say that, right? And that'd be embarrassing for the U.S. government, who considers themselves the world's foremost superpower, especially when it comes to military prowess, to say, here's a threat. It's real. By the way, we have nothing to match it. Nothing. I mean, nothing. So we don't, as Americans, we hate not knowing shit, and we hate not being able to shoot shit. So, of course, UFOs are fake, guys.
Nothing to
And
see
it,
here.
you bring a valid point too, because I mean, I also feel that the reason why they're kind of loosened up the grip a little bit is because, and it's just my opinion, people are becoming more stupider and stupider, and they figured, hey, you know what I mean? Let's
Yeah.
you know, I mean, but there's so much. Well, I don't want to really say evidence, but there's just so much evidence, if you
Well,
will, that
let's be
suggests it
honest.
does. You know?
There is actually a metric fuck ton of evidence. There
Oh
is.
yeah, oh yeah. But
People feel
it could be
scared
fake
to say that.
too. Mm-hmm.
I think that at a certain point, yes, I think quite a bit of it probably is fake. I guarantee you that not all of it is. And the lid is blown so far off this thing. This is not a localized phenomena. This is and this is not an American phenomena. You know what I mean?
Right.
Shit tons in like Russia and Ukraine, the UK. I mean, everywhere that people are, they have seen things.
Well, and also activity around nuclear reactors. I mean, like there's, you know, and then like we were talking about magnetic fields or magnetic anomalies.
Oh yeah.
Point Pleasant, West Virginia for Mothman is one of those such locations.
Oh.
Ley lines, points of power, you know, where you have these different locations around the world that have obelisks. You know, there's different places that have different currents or powers.
How to summon a skinwalker, you have to locate ley lines. That's part of that too, just so you're aware how to summon this weird creepy page. But I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here because I had actually worked this into. So you've watched the show. So Travis Taylor, probably the weirdest crush I've ever had. I'm a fucking redneck. It's because he's smart, man. I love it when a man talks and it makes sense because that's rare. So this article was released like a couple of weeks ago. Like, I love this shit. So Mystery Wire came out with this article, and it was June 22nd. One of the U.S. government's premier UFO investigators has stepped out of the shadows to openly discuss his work for the UAP Task Force, an organization created by Congress to evaluate unidentified aerial phenomena. Who is this boy? Our favorite redneck. Travis Taylor was basically leading a double life, secretly working as the chief scientist for the Pentagon's UAP Task Force. Did you read this article?
Right. No.
I think it's weird that he has two first names in his name. Can't trust him.
Turning the frickin' frogs gay.
Al Jones.
Don't get me started.
What's his name again? Travis what?
Taylor. Travis Taylor. It's so funny because like the way that he talks when he's like narrating, because I rewatched a shit ton of the shows. It's sexy because he's smart, but I also hate him because the way he talks is with that sense, like his tone is that he's never quite done talking. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's his speech pattern. He's like, and there we were out on the mesa, and we saw some gosh darn lights in the sky, and I was like, "Are you seeing this?" But like the way he ends his sentences, it always sounds like there's more sentences coming. I'm like,
yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Isn't that like the boss from Office Space where he has like the cup? This is world's best boss. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna need you to come in. You know, like where he keeps like he does the sentences like that where it just keeps continuing.
I was like trying to connect those dots. I was like, what planet are you on? To get taken up by Earth. A UAP. So. I'll make sure to link this article too because I love this shit when like the government has to come out and like finally admit shit and everyone who was supposedly crazy before, because there's quite a few conspiracy theories that I don't believe, and I would say almost all, in fact, I don't believe. UAPs, as they're now called, as opposed to UFOs, I believe has always had entirely too much validity to it as a whole. There's the mass of evidence has always been overwhelming. It doesn't necessarily mean it's aliens. It means unidentified thing in the sky. Not yours, not mine, unknown. That's what a UFO is. Unidentified flying object. Doesn't mean fucking aliens. It means something in the sky that we can't identify that moves in ways that seem to defy our understanding of physics. I was watching some interviews at 3 a.m. while I was super hungover of like fighter pilots giving interviews about times when they encountered what is it, USS Nimitz, I believe, like the battle group that encountered while doing drills encountered like this wild Go ahead, Brett.
And the other thing is they either have to be unmanned or they're not manned by humans, because how fast they accelerate or how sharp the turns are, just a human pilot could not handle those kind of G-force from those turns.
Right. And that's what I mean. They seem to defy how we understand
physics.
Not only physics, but like anything that has the capacity to fly mechanically, these should not. These should not be able to be airborne.
And no sound. Like most instances or reports are silence.
The speeds at which they move, the aerodynamics of them, sometimes the like amorphous kind of shifting quality, the reflectivity, the lack of intake or engines or noise, the speeds, obviously. There's a lot we don't understand. However, keeping in mind that not too long ago, electricity was witchcraft to us as humans.
That's true.
And now here we are on multiple different electronic devices talking about fucking space. Like, that's the weirdest thing to ever happen.
Well, even medicine was considered witchcraft back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like we've evolved so much, and we still have way more to evolve. So we, like you said, we can't understand.
But make sure you take your snake oil.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, like, what was a fucking meth that was like medicine back then? Or like, I don't know what to do with you. You have a fever. How about some heroin? Like, excuse me?
I mean, in the medieval ages or Renaissance, wasn't it just bloodletting? Like, oh, you're sick, let's drain some blood. Like,
yep.
Yeah. Or let's sacrifice this pig, you'll be fine,
No, exactly right.
It's a barbecue.
Or, we'll just throw you in the river, and if you can swim, you're a witch. And if you sink, well, I guess you're a dead innocent person. Oops.
Right?
It's just...
Oh, God. Humans, aren't we amazing?
And that's what I try to tell people about the context of these things. Like, I don't believe in the paranormal at all. I'd love to have at least some kind of doubt at some point so I can, like, I don't know, do some deep diving, take some LSD. I don't fucking know. But when it comes to this shit, from a basis of someone who believes so firmly in science that I just don't believe in anything else, the universe is unfathomably large.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost... There's a quote that says, there's two options. Either we're alone in the universe, or we are not alone in the universe. And both options are equally terrifying.
Well, and that takes you into the Fermi Paradox.
Staying on track a little.
I'm on track. I'm completely on track.
I can't wait for you to watch this later and, like, assess your level of high, because at the beginning of this episode, he said that he was a 3 out of 10 high.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Gonna have to argue that. Gonna have to make an objection to that.
I'm on topic. You're talking about that. I offer valid input that has to do with the topic. I mean, that either we're alone or we're not alone. The Fermi Paradox also discusses that.
Tell us about... Hold on.
That's a whole other episode.
No, tell us about that. I thought you said it was relevant.
It is, that because you're talking about not alone in the universe. That's what the Fermi Paradox goes into. It goes into, okay, if there's other life out there and so intelligent, why hasn't it contacted us yet? Well, it might be hostile. It may not be evolved to the point where they even want to deal with us. We're not even a threat. Or like anything in nature or organisms, once you're at a certain point, there's always a bigger fish. You're food for something else. So if there is other life out there, maybe we don't want them to know about us. And that's one reason why we still exist. Like, that's what this paradox goes over. On whether being alone or not alone in the universe.
So with that paradox, does it talk about like dimensions or anything like that?
Well, yeah, it's saying that we don't understand it. And so just because we don't understand it doesn't mean we should be sending messages out into space saying, oh, Here we are, we will make contact. Because one, what if they don't understand it? What if they do understand it? What if we're just a free meal and we just gave away our position? We don't know what's out there. And so it goes into like a much cosmic, almost a cosmic horror space where it's like, we don't know how big it is out there. There might be, what's that Dr. Seuss book, Horton Hears a Who? The little town that's just on that little daffodil.
Yeah.
Don't you be bashing on Horton Hears a Who.
So I know I'm using that as an example. Like they had their respect and they have so much pride and they think they're the shit and they think they're all that. And little do they know that what's keeping them alive is this huge elephant. It's keeping them alive from all the dangers of the jungle that they're in. And so this paradox basically says maybe it's not a good idea that we broadcast our position where we are and just accept or live with telling ourselves we're alone in the universe and work on being better, our better selves. So it's pretty interesting.
I don't think as humans will be able to like handle that reality. Let's say we are alone. You know,
We
I
can't even
think we
handle
would
our daily reality.
exactly. You know, like we can't even do like my home alone. Like we can't even do that. You know, but
I can't
here's
handle
my
putting on a bra when I'm slightly sweaty, so no, I cannot handle
right.
extraterrestrial life. No, like
Like
that's.
let me work on the bra. Then we'll talk aliens. We'll
I'm
talk
still mad that
later.
there's a sun out right now. Okay, I'm dealing with some small scale problems.
Well,
The bra comes
hear me
first.
out
The
on this one.
toothbrushing.
I have a theory that probably doesn't make any sense, but I know in case you're going to call me out on that, and that's what I want. So if you think about it, and I'm kind of maybe going just slightly off topic, maybe I'm not, I don't even know. Anyways, and no, I'm 100% sober, unfortunately. But so, like you said earlier, Casey, about the electromagnetic and all that, when it comes to paranormal activities or all that, correct?
Mhm.
I am a big like believer in the paranormal and everything. But what if, and I think you did mention this earlier, what if all that paranormal stuff is the all that electric magnetic stuff
Mhm.
that's going on and stuff? Like for example, in Skinwalker Ranch, let's say hypothetically you had the witch doctors and you said that they weren't really like if they became skinwalkers because they got too into the dark magic stuff. What if they opened up a portal, because that is something that witchcraft is involved. You have to open up the circle, if you will. What if it was
Gateways.
over? Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, what if it already was a high activity back in the day, and they just kind of made it worse because they were getting so into it, they never closed it, and it just got worse and worse, and kind of opening some sort of dimension, which would, in my opinion, my small little brain, I feel would explain why there's the skinwalkers and the aliens. I mean, I'm getting too into it. I get that, and I sound crazy. I understand that.
Bigfoot.
You know, I'm used to it.
Well,
Yeah, Bigfoot. Like, I'm just what if,
there's no harm in kind of following these like thought exercises essentially. So that's something
Right,
that as I've watched the show, I've thought about as well. Like you have to wonder. So something scientifically, something came first.
right.
So is it possible that the high conductivity of the soil and the electromagnetic activity there was what drew UAPs and activities such as that to the ranch in the first place? Or is the presence of the UAPs and different things like that what is essentially causing the ground to become, conductive and magnetic and different phenomena to occur? Something came first, right? It was a chicken or the egg.
Right.
So
And what if it's a like that magnetic field that's going on, that anomaly is like an energy source, and the energy source in a couple ways, like an energy source either for them manifesting or fuel to continue, or maybe it is food of their prey of what they're hunting. We don't know.
it has been hypothesized that the ground itself at Skinwalker Ranch essentially can act as basically a giant battery because of the connectivity
Mm-hmm.
level in certain areas of the ranch. And they do some experiments on the show that is really visually helpful to understand. Like they're able to, at one of the homesteads, especially where those readings are super high, they're able to like power a flashlight off of the earth because it's so conductive. And then they talk about how Tesla had this theory for turning the earth into a conductive battery, and how the ranch is essentially composed in that way with superconductive layers, similar as how you'd find in a battery. Really fucking fascinating stuff. I wish I understood it better because it's things that I've read about, and then seeing it visually performed on the show for me helps a lot of pieces click in ways that I'm not great at elucidating. Here's your $10 word of the day. Spectacular vernacular, motherfuckers. God, on one right now. But it's one of those things where I start to like. There's so many things on the show that they scratch the surface of, such as there's all these things that are under the ground essentially. And me, this is why I'm not responsible enough to be a billionaire UFO tycoon, because my dumb ass would be like, bring in all the fucking construction equipment. We're digging everything up. If they die, they die. Like whatever fucking risks or whatever, like fucking sign a waiver or get off the property. We are digging. Like, and that's when I understand people ask, like, how can, how could the U.S. bring Nazi scientists over to win the space race? Well, I feel that urge when I'm watching this show to literally pull out every stop and, kind of cover over every moral ambiguity in order to fucking find out. Like, my urge to, like, know mysteries is so strong that I would definitely do some absolutely dubious shit to get into that ground. I would be tearing up that mesa. Like, there's one experiment they do in season 3 where they drop a smoke bomb into a cavern in the mesa, and, quote, the mesa inhales. The smoke gets sucked into the mesa and fucking disappears. Okay, no, go back and start.
Let's figure that out.
The
truth is out there.
I would die if I didn't find out what happened. Like, I would be awake for weeks until we ripped the lid off that mesa like a tin can. I swear to God, like, there's nothing that would stop me. I would be
But like
spelunking.
a camera down there.
Oh, okay. So they tried to drill into the mesa. They tried to put a camera on. They drilled 400 feet in, put a camera on tracks. What should happen but a giant boulder fall into their 400-foot, like a perfectly round boulder, like you can see it on the camera. Like, this is a shit the
Like
ranch
Indiana
does.
Jones.
Yeah, and it's not a very large. The hole's maybe like 6 to 8 inches, but they want to, go deeper into the mesa and with a camera, and spending a lot of money on equipment and a lot of time and effort on experts, and something plugs the hole. Like, magically, this giant hole they spent days digging is just plugged.
Well, there's other errors and anomalies that happen with electronics, with batteries dying unusually quick. Doesn't matter how many you charge. I mean, just electronics get drained anywhere on the ranch too. That's something else that was going on.
That's the push-pull for me of watching the show, is sometimes they do jump a little bit towards the superstitious or paranormal, when my mind is immediately like, you ever try to take a cell phone into a tanning bed? It'll do the same thing. I'm serious.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of there's a lot of forces on Earth that can impact electronics. So, like, one of the ones they like to use is, oh my God, it's scrolling through his phone. Like, something's trying to hack their phone. Yeah. It's like super high frequencies of certain types of energy and radiation and electromagnetic waves, and can have crazy effects on things, especially iPhones, right? Like, iPhones are sensitive little shits. So for me, that's where my mind goes. And if they jump to something else, I get a little irritated with them. I want to, like, get in their ear and be like, go back to science. Like, stop this shit. But there are so many things that they do that I just want to I want to, like, take it to the extreme. Like, no, don't give up. Like, like, hammer that shit home. But that's why I cannot be trusted with science experiments, because I would definitely Frankenstein something, because I don't have a single bit of moderation in my body. I'm not a lukewarm motherfucker. I'm very extreme. Sometimes I'm like, dude, I don't like to leave things unfinished. I don't like to leave things unknown. But there's a lot of validity, I believe, to the things happening here. I don't believe it's all a hoax or fake. It just comes down to
not the kind of money Uncle Sam threw at it and do its independent study.
The government is way too interested in this place. Another theory that I don't know if it's really quote unquote a popular theory, but one of many concepts that was kind of thrown around was that the entire Uintah Valley Basin is essentially a science experiment being performed on us, either by the government or by extraterrestrial life, to gauge our reaction to them. Our
plot twist.
To see how to kind of, experiment on us to see what we will or won't believe, how we'll tell things, how we'll discuss things, that we're essentially, ants in an ant farm, and they're just testing to see how we dig our tunnels. And they're exposing themselves to us intentionally to gauge our reactions, essentially. Which I wouldn't put that past any government to do.
Right. It does make sense if you really think about it. I mean, it's like, how would we react? How, and a lot of people would, they will react one way, and then another group will react. Like, have you ever seen the movie Signs? How when Mel Gibson's talking to Joaquin Phoenix about, like, well, you got two types of people. Some would see him as a miracle. Some would see it as like a threat. We're screwed. type thing. And it's the same thing. I know I'd be like, damn, we're fucking screwed.
Well,
we're
and then
screwed,
there's and then there's always that primal fear, primal survival if you come in contact with any of that, because it's just unknown to us. We don't know if it's good, bad, evil. We assume the worst, because it probably does have good intentions for us. Like, that's just a primal instinct that's embedded deep in us too. And then also that curiosity to want to know what it is.
That will, if I can die, that's what will get me killed. Is like, I would walk up to a fucking alien and be like asking questions. Be like, bro, first of all, can I come with? Please. I hate it here. Please, I'm done with these fuckers. Yeah, they're stupid. Like, probe what you gotta probe, man. Let's go. Put me in the suit, okay? Like,
what? So you'd be like that Avril Lavigne song, "I'm with you," or one where she's like all cold and in the rain and wants to go home. You want to do that to the alien?
Yvette, do you have anything intelligent to offer to this conversation?
Unfortunately, maybe not intelligent, but
fuck.
No, in the first season, and any spoiler for anyone who hasn't watched it, but like the first season, what really, really I found fascinating, that it actually kind of creeped me out. I forgot which episode, but it was towards the beginning where they see the light beam when they had like the green laser and everything like that. So my thing is, where the fuck is that light coming? Like, is it coming from the ground or from above? Because that part I couldn't really tell. So my thing is like, hey,
you're talking about the lights on the mesa?
Yeah, because there's videos of that. You know what I mean? Like, is it coming from the ground or is it coming from above? And if so, if it's coming from the ground, who the fuck is down there? You know what I mean? Like, that's the shit that kind of scares me. It's like, what? And then when you're talking about how like it inhaled the mesa, like inhaled, it's like I literally got chills because I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm mind blown about that.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that clip? I will send it to you.
Yes.
It made me like, I was talking to my TV. I was being abusive to my TV. I'm like, you beautiful, stupid redneck scientist, go back! Right? Like, I was so mad. I'm like, what do you mean? The mesa just inhaled the smoke. I don't know where it is by. Like, no.
How is that even physically possible?
Well, one of this started out because there is a guy whose name I can't remember. He's actually there's a really interesting Facebook group. There's a Skinwalker Ranch Facebook group that I've been in for a while, just kind of troll for information for the outline. Mm-hmm. And all of the cast and characters from the show and from the books and from Bigelow's team are actually mostly in this group. And his name is something Bartel. That's his last name. And he was security, so ex-military, and then he was armed security for the ranch at the time when Bigelow was running his experiments there, when NIDS was operating and doing their research. He was on patrol on like a UTV, and he like climbed up to the top of the mesa, looked down from the top of the mesa, and saw a cave in the hillside. And he had found some like human artifacts in there, like some old traps or something. So he comes back to the ranch in season 3 and shows them the cave. He's like, I think this is where it is. And it looks like the cave's collapsed. So what they do is they bring out colored smoke bombs. And they throw the smoke bomb into the cave and see if it comes out in other locations to see if there's other access entry points to the cave. So they find a couple other spots it comes out. They find another large opening. And they throw another colored smoke bomb in there. And you can see it briefly. And then this is the point when, instead of coming out, as you would expect, the mesa physically sucks in like a vacuum all of this colored smoke, and it fucking vanishes and never reappears anywhere.
That's freaking
like a vacuum.
Yeah.
So where
like
the
I literally
fuck?
got chilled. Yeah. Where did it go? Where is it coming?
Me too.
From? Where is
that
it
was
going?
one of the most impactful moments, and it's such a small thing. It's like so innocuous, essentially, but to me, the implications are like insane. Like, it's nuts. That's something is.
My curiosity, I would want to drop water in there. I don't know why. Just
yeah,
like you know what I mean? Because it's more of it's not, obviously it's not a solid, but you would be able to see it better. It's like I just want to know where the fuck it's going.
Well, I mean, they did attempt an experiment kind of like that near one of the homesteads, and they tried to fill up the pit with the green dye, which is, I mean, nothing came of that. Do you remember that? Really promising.
It's trippy. But one thing I will say about the show, I do find the show very interesting, but my thing, and this is just me, I just feel like it's too rehearsed. You know what I mean? At least for the first season. I haven't seen the second or third, to be quite honest with you, but I will watch it. I just feel
Mhm.
like it's a little too rehearsed, like it's a little too acting, like the part where they saw uh like the whatever, like UFO,
Mhm.
whatever it's called, chingadera. You know, they were like, oh my god, like so amazed. And it's like, yeah, if that was my ass right there, I'd be like, what the fuck? I wouldn't be like, oh wow, well, it's good. No, I would be freaking the
Yeah.
fuck out. You
And I
know what I
have to
mean?
assume that there are some, because that's where my mind goes to, is like, what's going on behind the scenes. You can only imagine what they are and
Right,
aren't allowed to show on camera to the general public versus what they're actually doing. So I
right.
believe in the first season they were like very, very overly cautious about what they were producing
And
Mm-hmm.
as far
distributing.
as and distributing to the general public. Um, and I believe that does kind of go away in season 2. It gets a little better
Okay.
from what I've seen of season 3, which is just highlight reels. Um, it seems a lot better because I
Okay.
think at a certain point, think about it. You're putting a lot of money into the ranch, into exploring things, and at no point do you have any guarantee you're actually going to find anything. It could all be a giant hoax. Now you're fronting this TV show where the entertainment value is based on what are we going to find versus
And that's pretty ballsy for them to like think that they're going to find something, or that confident that there's that much phenomena going on
I
that they could pick and choose what product to put on TV.
and I think that comes back to the Bigelow era of investigation was convincing enough and government funded enough to kind of assuage all doubts that there was or wasn't anything. Like clearly
Mm-hmm.
something is going on here. The government doesn't just throw fucking money. Billionaires like Bigelow don't just throw money at thin air.
Well,
And
you're
again,
not a
Right.
billionaire just doing that.
he was kind of lured away to greener pastures. Fugall, who ended up buying the ranch from Bigelow under like a secret holding company, he was so like iffy about attaching his name to any of this that he actually was like undercover. Essentially, he did not release his name. He remained anonymous during his dealings with investigating the ranch for years until his team actually convinced him to go public in, I believe, a Vice article several years later. But he literally there's interviews that he's done where he has like the voice modulator going on and like it's all black like in the early years of owning the ranch because he did not want his name. He's a very prominent businessman. He does commercial real estate development and he's very successful. He did not want his name in this bucket with crackpots and UFOs and crazy shit, but he was scientifically really interested in what was happening there, as I would be too. But I wouldn't mind my name on it. Like I'd be like, yeah, fuck yeah, it's me, me.
And
And we're
Have that
getting
clearly
MPU money.
something's clearly going on there. That's one thing that
mhm.
everyone could agree on, you know. My thing is just like what, and then how they, the fact that they have all the like the older homesteads and everything there, you could see the history in there, and I love
Right.
that. Like, just like you, like I would love to go in there myself and see like what, like, you know what I mean? Just like go in there and see like, well, you know, and it kind of reminds me, um, well, not reminds me. It just like I don't know if you guys, any of you, if any of you play games or anything, but Red Dead Redemption, there's a couple little homesteads there that kind of reminds me of that
Yeah.
and everything. And then I'm also curious if the movie Nope is based off or inspired
I want to
by.
see that.
I want to. I heard it's so good, and just the previews itself. I'm like, my first thought was, is this inspired or based off Skinwalker Ranch? Because it has a lot of familiar, you know, I can't even talk, you know, but you get what I'm saying? Like, sorry,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it makes me curious. That's, I do want to watch it. And then I did a little bit of research, and some people were saying that it is, in fact, inspired by Skinwalker Ranch.
I could see that for sure. I have not
Yeah,
seen the movie, but I have seen the previews.
I heard it's really good.
Same.
Before we go too much further, I do want to cut us off with a promise of being back for part 2 because we have a lot more to cover. We'll definitely get more into some of our thoughts on the show, different things that have happened. Not going to do a Florida them. I'll do it at the end of the next episode. But we have a lot more to tell you. We're going to talk about the cast, the scientific accolades of many of the frequent flyers that you see on the show or people that are mentioned commonly, and some, you know, what gives them validity, what gives them the right to be doing these experiments, like where do they come from, who are these people,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the equipment that they have on the show, the science behind it, the experiments they're doing, and then, of course, a lot of the phenomena they have been able to observe and collect data on. Bret, you want to take us out of here?
Yeah, I appreciate you sticking with us and us going off topic at times. Usually my fault. There's that battered syndrome again. But no, it's been great to have Adolfo and Yvette joining us on this part one of Skinwalker Ranch. Look forward to doing the second part because that's where we'll actually go more in depth to the procedures and the investigative things that we do know.
Absolutely.
But no, again, thank you for your support and listening. Please give us a like or a follow on whichever media platform you're following us on. We need those. They help us out with the algorithms. But until next time, bye.
Bye.
Bye.